Spring is finally peeking around the corner, and you know what that means. It's time to get seeds started for our warm season crops. If you're itching to grow juicy tomatoes, crisp peppers, and refreshing melons, you've clicked on the perfect video. Today in the garden, I'm excited to share 9 warm season crops that you can grow at home, even if you don't have a massive garden to grow in. It doesn't matter if you're growing on your balcony or your backyard, or if you're growing in containers or raised beds. There's always room for produce if you're clever with how you use your space. My name is Mylan Turner, and this is my gardening channel, ATL Grow. I'm an urban gardener growing in Atlanta, Georgia, Zone 8A. I'm not an expert, but my goal is to inspire you to grow your own food at home and to help guide you along the way. In this video, I'm not going to just tell you which 9 crops to plant. I'm also going to share varieties that I've picked, especially for small spaces. So grab your seeds and containers, and let's get our warm season crops off to a strong, healthy start together. The first crop that I'm sharing today is cantaloupe. I've picked the Hale's Best variety, and the seeds are from True Leaf Market. This cantaloupe is super sweet and super fragrant. It has the traditional golden flesh that you're used to seeing at the market. I'm planting this seed and all the rest of the crops today in these 4-cell trays from Bootstrap Farmer. These are the larger cell trays with air prune technology, which encourage strong root development. Another benefit to using these cells is since we're growing some of the larger seeds, they'll have plenty of room to sprout and grow. The planting depth for cantaloupe is about 1 inch. I'm starting my seeds today in the seed starting mix from Coast of Maine. It's an organic mix that's enriched with compost and fertilizers to get our seedlings off to a great start. Cantaloupe seeds typically germinate in 7 to 14 days, and once they germinate, they'll need plenty of light. So I'm starting mine indoors under grow lights, which are on for 16 hours a day. Once they've sprouted, they'll be ready to plant outdoors in about 4 weeks. That's perfect timing for me because my last frost date is around April 15th. Now that's just a rough estimate. I typically look at the weather forecast for the next 10 days or so, just to make sure we don't have any frost in the forecast. After transplanting, these reach maturity in roughly 80 days. They produce a nice sized fruit that can range anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds. One thing I almost forgot to mention, the most successful harvest, grow your cantaloupe vertically. In my case, I'll be growing mine in my trellis bed, which is an 8 by 4 foot bed with the trellis netting built in. As the fruits mature and develop, they can get a bit heavy, so I'll be using these fruit hammocks from Bootstrap Farmer to secure them. I love having fresh fruit over the spring and summer, so I can't wait to harvest these. The next crop that I'm sharing today is cucumber, and I've selected the Hasenator pickling cucumber from Haas Tools. This is a super productive pickling cucumber that was specifically bred to grow in the South. This variety produces the typical size that you want for pickles. You'll do best to harvest them when they're about 3 to 5 inches in length. The planting depth for cucumbers is just like our other melons. We're planting roughly 1 inch deep. The germination time for these seeds is around 7 days or so. This is another crop that grows best on a trellis. But if you don't have room for a trellis, there are some bush varieties that you can grow. Those vines only grow 3 to 4 feet in height, so they don't need nearly as much support. The Hasenator pickling cucumbers reach maturity really quickly. They'll be ready to harvest in as little as 50 days after transplanting. You'll know they're about ready to start producing fruit when you see the bright yellow flowers. Keep an eye out for 2 types. The male flowers have long, narrow stems. The female flower has a round bulb behind them, and that's where your fruit's going to come from. Encourage bees and pollinators to visit your garden by planting more flowers nearby. That'll ensure you have no issues with pollination and you'll have plenty of cucumbers. We're staying in the melon family for our next crop, which is the honeydew melon. As you can see from the packet, I can't give you a variety this time because these seeds were saved from fruit that I got it from the grocery store last year. They were some of the best honeydew melons that I'd ever had, so I said, hey, let's save the seeds and see if I can grow them next year. While I don't know the exact growing conditions, I know they're going to be very similar to cantaloupe. These are one of the larger seeds, so planting depth for these is roughly 1 inch. Based on the research that I've done for other honeydew varieties, I'm expecting germination time to be anywhere from 7 to 14 days. This is another one I'll be growing vertically and also using the hammocks to support the fruit. The general range for maturity for honeydew melons is about 80 days. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with these varieties or if they're going to grow at all, so this will be a fun experiment. The fruit that I got from the grocery store was roughly around 5 pounds, so I'm hoping to have the same size with these. If you want to keep up with my honeydew adventures, subscribe to the channel. I'll post updates and garden tours as things grow. The next crop that I'm planting today is one of my underrated favorites, and that's okra. I'm planting the Clemson Spineless 80 variety, and the seeds are from Back to the Roots. This variety produces dark green, really flavorful pods. This is another larger seed, so you can plant them around 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep. These seeds can be a little slower to germinate than some of the others. I'm expecting germination time anywhere between 14 and 21 days. They also do benefit from a little heat when starting, so I'll be keeping mine on a heat mat. I found okra to be a heat lover. When everything else starts to take a break in the summer heat, okra keeps producing even in the 90-degree temps. The plants typically mature in about 60 days. You will start to get these seed pods that are best harvested in between 2 or 3 inches. If you're an okra lover like me, you can harvest them even earlier. I like to harvest them when they're about 1 inch in length, eating them raw, fresh off the plant. They're absolutely delicious. Even though I'm recommending this one for growing in smaller spaces, these plants can get quite tall. I've had them grow to about 4 feet in height. Even growing in containers, they still produced really well with fruit daily. Are you an okra lover, or are you one of the people who find it to be slimy? Let me know in the comments. Moving on to the next crop of today, I've picked peppers. The variety I'm planting today is the poblano pepper, and these are from Botanical Interest. Poblano peppers are one of my favorite peppers. But they're not just my favorite. This is one of the most popular chilies in Mexico. I love having them roasted or stuffed with other Mexican dishes. This is a medium-sized seed, so I'm planting it about 1/2 inch deep. Peppers, like the rest of the nightshade family, can be a little slow to germinate. These I've found to germinate from anywhere between 14 to 21 days. And because peppers are quite sensitive to frost, I hold off a little bit, waiting 2 extra weeks after my last projected frost date before I plant them. They require a lot of work to get going, so I just don't want to risk any damage with a surprise frost. Once transplanted, they'll reach maturity in somewhere around 75 days. You can harvest them early once they reach that deep green color, but if you leave them on the plant, they'll mature to a bright red. I find them to be absolutely delicious when they're fully mature. Once harvested, you can enjoy them fresh or dry them to have ancho peppers. The next crop today is squash. I'm sowing the Black Beauty zucchini, and the seeds are from True Leaf Market. This is a classic dark green summer squash that have made zucchini really popular. Continuing on with the conditions from the melon family, this is a larger seed. The planting depth for these is about 1 inch deep. I typically see pretty rapid germination with these. I've seen them sprout in as little as 3 days, but typically around 7 days. Once they've sprouted, they're ready to be transplanted outdoors in about 4 weeks. So I have a real love-hate relationship with growing zucchini and other summer squashes. They're really productive, and you get plenty to harvest. So much that you'll be sharing with your neighbors. The one downside is they have a really annoying pest in my area, and that's the squash vine borer. It's a bright red moth that lays eggs on the plant. You'll know you're about to start having trouble with the squash vine borers once you start seeing their bright red moths showing up in the garden. They're really active midday, and you can't miss them. And as pretty as the moths are, you'll be really annoyed once they lay their eggs and the larvae start to eat your plant from the inside out. I don't typically try to fight the squash vine borers too much. Instead, I plant them from seeds indoors to get a head start. That allows me to get plenty of harvest before the pest moves in. And then once they're here, that's pretty much the end of that season for me. I may do a fall planting. It just depends on if we have a warm or cool fall. Zucchini and other summer squash can get really big. I like to harvest mine on the small side. I keep it around 6 inches or so. I find once they get much bigger than that, the seeds get hard and the flesh isn't as tender, so they're not as good to eat. The next crop today is tomatillos. I've picked the purple variety, and these are from Botanical Interest. I haven't grown tomatillos before, but Peter, the developer of the Planter Gardening app, highly recommended it. And because I love salsa, I had to give them a try. I picked the purple variety because it's said to be sweeter than the other varieties and is rich in antioxidants. These seeds are much smaller than the others that I've planted today, so I'm only planting them about 1/4 inch deep. The germination time is like tomatoes, so it's going to range from 10 to 21 days. The growing conditions are also quite similar to tomatoes. The one benefit, though, is that these can take the heat. So when tomatoes take a break during the summer, tomatillos are said to keep on growing. It's best to grow multiple tomatillo plants to ensure proper pollination. The plants start to reach maturity in around 70 days, but you're encouraged to leave the fruit on the plant as long as you can. Watch for the husk to start to split. That's when you know they're ready to harvest. I'm really looking forward to trying tomatillo salsa this summer. The next crop is a spring garden favorite, and that's tomatoes. I'm planting the Hasinator tomato from Haas Tools. This is a slicing tomato and it's an absolute showstopper. I already know my first tomato harvest of the year is going right into a tomato sandwich. I picked the Hasinator variety for a couple reasons. First, it grows to a medium determined height with no pruning needed. Second, this variety is really disease resistant. It's a hybrid variety that's been specifically bred to thrive in our area. The sowing depth for tomato seeds is about 1/4 inch, and we should see germination in 7 to 14 days. Once transplanted outdoors, this variety reaches maturity in about 70 days. It produces really large tomatoes that you will see anywhere from 8 ounces to 12 ounces. Again, it's a really productive tomato that you'll absolutely love. The next crop that I'm sharing today is watermelon. I'm actually planting 2 varieties of watermelon today. First is the Mini Love watermelon, and the second is the Sugar Baby watermelon. I grew Sugar Baby watermelon for the first time last year, and that was my absolute favorite grow of the year. Both of these varieties grow fruit that is specifically bred to be kept in the fridge. You'll sometimes hear them called icebox watermelons because of that. These, like the rest of the melon seeds, are quite large, so planting depth is about 1 inch. I direct sowed them last year, but I want to get a head start, so I'm starting them indoors this year, and I expect germination to be anywhere between 7 and 10 days. These are really prolific producers, and they're still great because they produce a lot of fruit in a small space. I'll be growing mine in raised beds. Once transplanted, these produce fruit in about 75 days. You can expect your fruit to be about 8 to 10 pounds in weight. Harvesting watermelon can be a bit tricky, so keep track of your planting date and your time to maturity. One other thing to watch out for is the watermelon tendrils. Locate the one closest to the fruit and watch for it to dry out and curl up. Once you see that, your fruit are ready to harvest in 5 to 7 days. Enjoy them fresh from the garden or chill them in the refrigerator to help beat the summer heat. And that's 9 warm season crops that you can start right at home. I hope that you're feeling inspired to get your seeds growing and to watch them grow. And if you'd like more tips for growing in containers, raised beds, and other small gardening techniques, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll be alerted when we post new videos. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll continue to learn and grow with us.